I'll be kicking off the presentations by taking us through 2 toolkits that we've created at Women New South Wales to help you find trusted information and resources on a wide range of topics related to personal finance and employment. These are the Women's Financial Toolkit and the Return to Work Toolkit, which are both available on the Women New South Wales website. I'll be focusing today on the resources in these toolkits for small business owners, but I also encourage you to view the toolkits in your own time for other resources that might be important to you. Before I go further, I also just want to note that these toolkits contain general information and will not be specific to your individual circumstances. So I'll get started with the Women's Financial Toolkit. So this was designed to be a one-stop shop to help women find reliable information and support across a range of financial matters. This toolkit was first proposed by the New South Wales Council for Women's Economic Opportunity, who saw the need for a practical resource to help women build financial literacy and independence, whatever their circumstances and at all stages of life. The toolkit brings together trusted resources in an accessible format and features topics that our research showed to be most important to women. On the toolkit landing page, you'll see that there are 3 main categories. The Everyday Money Matters section has resources for budgeting, finding work, support if you lose your job, and starting a business. The Help with Unexpected Issues section contains information about support available if you experience an unexpected event, such as a natural disaster, or if you require support for financial hardship. Finally, the Planning for Your Future section features guidance for navigating different life events and information about investing and superannuation. So under Everyday Money Matters, we've linked specific resources for women who are looking to support their small business or start a new small business. For example, here you can find information about the Women in Business program run by TAFE New South Wales. If you haven't heard of it, this is a fully subsidised online course for women who are looking to establish a micro business, a small business, or who are already operating a business. It's a completely flexible program, meaning that you can choose the topics according to what's most valuable for you and your small business. New topics are also regularly being added to ensure that the content stays up to date with current business trends. Another key resource that you'll find in this section is Service New South Wales Support for Women in Business page, which can connect you with personalised support for your small business. For example, you can contact Service New South Wales Business Concierge for guidance on accessing government support for your small business. For more detailed support, you can also access personalised advice through Business Connect. So these are independent Business Connect advisors who all have direct experience in running their own small business, and they can help you with all aspects of business ownership, including business planning, marketing, managing cash flow, and things like sales and pricing strategies. Business Connect has advisors who can provide support in multiple languages other than English, as well as dedicated Aboriginal advisors who can provide local and culturally appropriate coaching to Aboriginal business owners. So these are just a few of the resources available on the Women's Financial Toolkit. I really encourage you to click through the toolkit yourself and see if there are any other resources that might be relevant to you. Whether you're seeking information to support your small business or more generally, if you'd like to increase your financial literacy and locate those trusted financial resources, chances are that there is a resource there that might benefit you. So we'll link that for you today, and we really encourage you just to go look and have a look at all the resources available in that toolkit. So we also have another toolkit, which is called the Return to Work Toolkit. Similar to the financial toolkit, this one brings together a range of trusted online resources to help women find reliable information on entering or re-entering the workforce, upskilling, finding a job, or starting a business, which we'll focus on today. The Return to Work Toolkit has been divided into 3 main categories, similar to the other toolkit. So the Job Search and Being Prepared section has a range of information, for example, about searching for a job, resume and interview prep, career guidance, and even things like coaching and finding suitable clothes for interviews and work. The life stages and diverse experiences and background section provides information for those different life stages where you might need to make additional considerations, and also specific information for women from different backgrounds and life experiences, that there may be additional or different supports available to you, such as First Nations women, women with disability, women who are carers, women migrants and refugees, women leaving prison, and women veterans. The running a business section category, which I'll chat more about later, includes links to resources such as things about tendering for government contracts, business health, grant programs, and also has links back to the Women's Financial Toolkit and kind of a whole host of other resources that you might find beneficial to you. So, if you're considering or in the process of a career change, you'll also find some helpful resources under the job search and being prepared section. One of those that I'll just highlight is the Careers New South Wales website. So Careers New South Wales is a really fantastic service that offers free career information, advice, and one-on-one professional guidance. So you can make an appointment with several different types of support. So you can make an appointment with a careers practitioner, an industry expert, or a skills specialist. So those are the kind of three streams of their advice. And these are all completely free of charge and personalized to your specific needs. And it's just that one-on-one appointment style that can give you that really personalized support. So I'd really encourage you to check that one out. As the name of the Return to Work Toolkit suggests, we also have dedicated resources for women who are returning to work after an extended time off, and these can be found in the second Life Stages and Diverse Experience and Background section. This can be a really difficult time, particularly without the right information and support. So what we've done here is just step out the most important things that you might want to consider when you are returning to work, either after a short amount of parental leave or after a more extended career break. The guidance in this section covers how to stay up to date in whatever field you're in, and this could include options for upskilling during your leave or just before you return from leave, if that's right for you and your particular job. There's also information on how to understand flexible working arrangements and your rights to parental leave pay provisions. Also linked in this section are specific payments that you may be entitled to, including the childcare subsidy through Services Australia. So we focused on this kind of information just to ensure that women have access to all the entitlements that are available to them, to make that transition as supported as possible. So another section. So if you are a current small business owner or are interested in starting your own small business, which may be like quite a few people on this call today, the final section of the Return to Work Toolkit, which is called Running a Business, contains a huge range of helpful resources, including many of the ones I've already mentioned, and also ones that we'll mention later on in the session. The part of this section that I'll particularly highlight today is the business health drop-down menu, which is just one of those sections within the running a business part of the toolkit. And that's there to help you protect your business from risk and unexpected events. One resource contained here, just to highlight, is the Digital Readiness Assessment Tool from the Australian Government, which you can use to measure the digital maturity of your business, which is against kind of 7 aspects of digital maturity. All you need to do is take a simple 10-minute quiz, which contains a series of questions about what kinds of technology you use, how you collect and use your data, what digital skills you might utilize through your business, and how you keep your data safe from cyber threats. After completing the quiz, you will receive a report that essentially benchmarks your business against other Australian businesses and provides a list of recommendations to action to improve the overall digital readiness of your business. The Australian Government also provides a separate cybersecurity assessment tool, which is linked in the toolkit as well. And we'll also hear more about protecting your business against cyber threats in the later session with Jacqueline from ID Support New South Wales. This section of the toolkit also contains guides and resources for preparing your business for disaster and recovering from a disaster should it affect your business. Finally, this section of the toolkit also contains resources to support your own mental health as a small business owner. Beyond Blue, for example, offers free one-on-one telehealth sessions with specially trained mental health coaches to support small business owners experiencing stress. And we'll also come back to this point of maintaining your health and well-being as a small business owner later in the session with a few of our other speakers. So yeah, that's so as I mentioned earlier, these toolkits contain just such a huge range of resources. So what I'd really encourage you to do is to look through them in your own time to see if there are any additional resources that might help you. This may be very well be associated with your small business or maybe a business that you're hoping to set up, or it could just be just any of the other topics that we cover to kind of improve your financial literacy and decision making around your finances. So I really hope that the resources I highlighted today show that there is just so much information and support out there, whether you are currently setting up or running a small business. And at Women New South Wales, we just hope that our toolkits make the job of finding those resources just that little bit easier. And so yeah, you can find just on that slide the links to all of our toolkits and the rest of our resources there as well. So that's me. I will hand off to our next speaker now. So our next speaker is Sandra Blake from the Small Business Debt Helpline. Sandra is going to take us through the basics of small business finances. Sandra is a founding member of the Small Business Debt Helpline. She previously worked as a generalist financial counsellor, a rural financial counsellor, an older person's financial counsellor, a university financial counsellor, and as a librarian. Sandra also operated a printing business in partnership with her husband, and she lives and works on her own farm. So thanks so much, Sandra. Take it away.
Thanks, Elena. And I also acknowledge my gratitude that we share this land today and my sorrow for some of the costs of that sharing, and my hope and belief that we can move to a place of equity, justice, and partnership together. I'd like to congratulate you on the wonderful toolkits that have been produced. I've had a look at them. There's some wonderful information, and really encourage everybody to go on there and have a look. The ATO also has put together a great toolkit of resources for small business owners as well. So it's great that these resources are out there and that we're able to promote them. The Small Business Debt Helpline is a phone and chat service providing small business owners right around Australia with free qualified financial counselling. Most of our financial counsellors have owned or currently own their own business, so we can really walk in the shoes of our clients. We listen to the concerns of our callers and then we provide options, and we explain the pros and cons of the options so the small business owner can make their own informed choice. Sometimes they've been impacted by flood, COVID, drought, fires. It might be personal illness, injury, relationship breakdown. We explain debt recovery in a non-threatening way. People feel they can ask us questions that they mightn't be confident to ask their lawyer or accountant about. We also ask about how they're coping, not only financially, but how is their mental health. So financial counsellors are not therapeutic counsellors, but we have all had mental health first aid training, and we've completed counselling units as part of our diploma training. We're good listeners, and we hear time and time again from our callers that that listening ear has been appreciated and valuable to them. Most of the people calling us have cash flow issues. They're unable to service their loans and pay their taxes. They're the main two. And then there's commercial rent, suppliers. They could have personal guarantees that they weren't aware of, and we explain those implications. We're also hearing from people who took out an SME recovery loan after COVID and now it's unaffordable. Our callers are often eager to learn about grants and how to fund their business. We know about grants, not many around at the moment. We're impartial, so we can't recommend a lender, but we can talk about red flags with lenders, what to be cautious about. So our callers generally, they want help with managing their debts and knowing what support they can access and how to understand their business viability. And more of our conversations are involving insolvency. And it's a complicated field. That corporate veil doesn't protect the director of a company from personal liabilities of all debt. And we talk about asset protection, including the family home. Is it at risk? And what can be done to protect the home? I'm going to talk about these main issues and how they can be dealt with and throw in a few tips. Tip 1, don't ignore the letter from the tax office or the statement of claim. Our top tip is lodge with the ATO on time. Even if you can't afford to pay, lodge on time. This staves off a lockdown director penalty notice, which can turn into a company tax debt into a personal tax debt. Now, the ATO is open to payment plans for tax owed. The payment plans can be managed by yourself in your own tax portal. Generally, the ATO want their tax debts paid off in 2 years, but with negotiation, they'll extend that to 3 years. And we have seen it extended for up to 5 years, but that's not common. Communication with the ATO is really important. There is a dedicated ATO hardship team that you can speak to. Let them know of your situation, what your intentions are with the business. You can ask them to hold any further action just to give you that time to see your accountant or financial counsellor or tax clinic, or time to complete that statement of financial position yourself, to come up with a sustainable payment plan. Because a payment plan that's suggested by the ATO mightn't be sustainable, and you don't want to accept a plan that's going to leave you in that difficult position of not being able to pay, or you've got to put off other debts and they get behind because you've been prioritising the ATO. And if going to your accountant is a barrier due to cost, or you're behind in your lodgements, try a free university tax clinic. They'll complete tax returns for you and your business and negotiate payment plans that are affordable with the tax office and explain your options. Now, they're part of the National Tax Clinic program that you can Google. There are 3 in New South Wales universities and there's 2 in the ACT. And I do know that a WA clinic will take clients from right around Australia if you can't get into any of those. So another tip here is to seek help and support early. Depending on circumstances, the ATO will consider debt release on some categories of tax, including income tax, PAYG instalments, fringe benefit tax and the Medicare levy. But they will not release GST, PAYG withholding or the super guarantee charges. Until very recently, like a few weeks ago, they were waiving added interest fees and charges if you did commit to a payment plan and you stuck to it. That seems to have ended just in the last couple of weeks, which is a shame, but it's worth asking for if you're in that negotiation stage. Another thing they can do, the ATO, is place debts on hold or non-pursuit if they consider they're not economical to pursue. But as soon as you start earning money, that non-pursuit debt will be re-raised. So while these debts might be shown as being not there, not outstanding, they haven't been waived and they can be reactivated if you get a tax refund or credits become available. If you've got a company with a large ATO debt and other creditor debts, you might consider a small business restructure as a good option. This can see the ATO accept a compromised figure, and we're hearing results of around 20 cents in the dollar. So that's a significant reduction. To be eligible for the small business restructure, your employee entitlements must be up to date, your lodgements have to be on time, and your debt's under $1 million. There is a cost as it's arranged by a registered insolvency practitioner, and it's a relatively quick process, and you remain in control of your company and you continue to trade as normal. So that's the small business restructure. The ATO hardship number is 1300 788 347. Here's a tip: prioritise your debts. If you owe money but you can't afford to pay it all back at once, try to negotiate with your creditors and make payment plans that are sustainable. Commercial leases are very different to residential leases. If you choose to vacate your premises early, perhaps your business isn't going well, you're legally obligated to pay the remaining lease payments until a new tenant is found. But you can still try and negotiate with the landlord to be released from this commitment. You'll find information on surrendering a lease and other commercial lease matters such as outgoings, lease terms, and what to look for before signing a lease on the New South Wales Small Business Commissioner website. They also offer mediation service between the landlord and the tenant. Here's another tip. If you've got an issue with a client not paying, try sending a template letter from the tools on the business.gov.au website. Offer terms to your client. They might be struggling financially but want to pay. If that doesn't work, NCAT as a low-cost resolution. The Australian Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman, now that's a big mouthful, we call it a SPEFIO, has great negotiation and mediation tips. They also offer advice about how to handle disputes, and they handle dispute with franchises. If you have concerns regarding your franchise, call SPEFIO for support and read the Franchising Code of Conduct. It's all free, 1300 650 460. When a small business owner has exhausted their savings and line of credit and they need to purchase new equipment, they often approach their bank for a loan. Many are declined finance, and often that's for a good reason. The owner may then be tempted to use a non-bank lender. Small business finance falls outside the National Credit Code. So, lenders to small business don't need a credit licence or an Australian Financial Services licence or be in a complaint scheme. Non-bank small business lenders aren't obliged to lend responsibly as they are if they lend to a consumer. And sadly, they often don't. We see extremely high fees and penalties and difficult terms. If they aren't members of AFCA, the Australian Financial Complaints Authority, that's like the Ombudsman for banking in Australia, they don't have the same dispute resolution options available to them as consumers do. There are some protections against misleading and deceptive behaviour and unfair terms in contracts, but they need to be proved in a court of law. We all know that's expensive, particularly if you don't win. An example of these loans that we see, a client who borrowed $25,000 for 100 days. His repayments were $386 a day. So that works out to $38,000, which is an interest rate in excess of 200%. Now, here was a contractor. He got paid at the end of his job. So it was a completely wrong product with an outrageous terms. And in the contract, there was no mention of interest rate. Another example we had seen was a loan for $26,000 and the borrower repaid $13,000. 15 months after taking out that loan and repaying $13,000, the amount owing was over $232,000. So a tip here, always check contracts very carefully and ask questions. If you don't understand it, ask somebody who will understand it. The Australian Financial Industry Association, they're called AFIA, is the peak body for some of the non-bank lenders and leasing companies. Their members include companies like Afterpay, Prosper, Zip, Lumi, Morley, you've heard of them. They have online small business lenders code of practice. So quoting that can be useful in negotiation if you need to negotiate. If your small business loan is from a mainstream bank or a customer-owned bank, then it's covered by the protection in that bank's respective code of conduct. And those lenders are members of AFCA, the Australian Financial Complaints Authority. And that's really helpful if you need hardship on your loan or you've got an issue. Again, Espefio is keen to hear of lending that's unfair, and they will advocate for small business owners if you're having trouble, as do small business financial counsellors. Please give us a call. So tip, understand the financial position of your business and separate business and personal expenses and income. You'll be thankful for this come tax time, also when you need to present for a loan. Insurance is often one of the things dropped when in financial hardship. If you are insured and you're in financial distress, check your policy for any payments that can relieve pressure or buy some time. You might have business interruption insurance that you weren't aware of. You might have insurance on credit cards, income protection. If you do find it and you make a claim and it's not allowed, again, AFCA, the Australian Financial Complaints Authority, they can help and they're keen to do so. Small business is important to Australia. They employ 44% of our workforce and 52% of our sole traders earn less than $25,000 a year. Sometimes the most viable option is to close the business. And we can have conversations with people about respectful exits, how they can walk away from their business with their head held high and look to the future with optimism. Winding up a business is the end of that business, but that individual has their whole future to consider. And we can assist and support by talking about those future plans and options, whether or not it includes a business. It's a very sensitive topic, and we always treat people with respect. So thank you, and I hope you'll give us a call if ever you need any clarification on anything that I've spoken about today, and I look forward to hearing what the other speakers have got to share. And I'm happy to answer any questions too.
Thanks, Sandra. We will be doing questions at the end, and I already have one for you. So
good. Lovely.
But yeah, if anybody does have any questions for Sandra, please just pop them in the chat and we'll come back to them. And thank you so much for that presentation. Just what an incredible service you have, and particularly just that what seems like an incredibly complex ecosystem of what to do when your business is in that situation. It's just great that we have services like that that can just provide that really comprehensive expertise and support. So thank you so much for taking us through that. Our next speaker is Danielle Davenport from the Rural Financial Counselling Service, who will be talking about cost of living challenges, advice for starting and running a small business, and when you might want to seek financial counselling, amongst other things. So to introduce Danielle, Danielle has a passion for people and property. She was the owner of a large independent real estate agency with 5 offices and more than 100 team members. She transitioned away from business ownership to more community-based roles, raising money for charities, and was recognised for her efforts with the Telstra Community Award. More recently, Danielle and her husband have been working with Rotary to increase the mental health services that are available to youth in regional New South Wales. So thank you so much for joining us, Danielle.
Well, thank you, Eleanor, and thank you, Sandra. Sandra has covered off on quite a number of very relevant points where we do cross over. So I'm working with the Rural Financial Counselling Service based in Orange, New South Wales, covering substantial areas going out to the greater western areas. The Rural Financial Counselling Service does offer free, impartial, independent and confidential services to primary producers So not necessarily just people living on the land, they need to be producing, from that enterprise and contributing to the food chain of primary production. And any directly related small businesses, so that could be shearers, land markers, fencing contractors. So if they're directly related to that primary production. And for all of these cases, for us to be able to offer assistance, they do need to be in financial hardship or at risk of financial hardship. And I think most people will probably be aware these days that with the natural disasters that have been compounding for primary producers, being in financial hardship or at risk of is pretty much nearly all of them these days. So the areas that we are able to assist with are sort of many and varied, from succession planning, farm budgeting, forecasting, cash flow analysis, farm debt mediation, identifying areas of risk and helping them to manage those risks, bank reviews, getting them bank ready, and bank loan applications, refinancing, business plans, and accessing government support. So whether that be rebates, grants when it's coming into play for significant natural disasters, or accessing concessional government loans. Obviously, they do have criteria as well, but sometimes those processes and application forms can be very lengthy, and naturally so, because they do have to make sure they're doing all the correct checks, and it can be difficult navigating your way through that. So I can't say that we're any more fond of paperwork, but that's definitely within our compass to be able to navigate through all that paperwork and make it easier for the primary producers to be able to access the concessional government loans there. So I'm going to be covering off on cost of living, some advice, the rural financial challenges, starting a business and changing careers, and really importantly, making sure that we keep a great work-life balance, or that we endeavour and get some of that me time or kindness time to yourself in there as well. Next slide there, please. Thank you. Jump to the next one as well. So cost of living, that's pretty much when we get up. When we wake up, we just think we open our eyes and keep breathing. But the cost of living is something that is there behind the scenes all the time. So it's literally our wake-up costs. So it's essential goods and services. For most people, the majority of their income will be taken up with housing, which is probably number one, mortgage and rent. Secondly, they come through to utilities, petrol, food and groceries. So there are essential goods and services that we kind of do need just to wake up in the day. And that's our cost of living. So to open those eyes and keep breathing. Number one, have a budget. It's probably very cliche, but those budgets really are instrumental. It brings your awareness, brings your focus, and quite often, when you start to create that budget, you are looking at the figures going, oh gosh, gee, was it that much? Oh, that's each month. I've got to multiply that out by 12 for what the annual costs are. So it's a definite awareness, but it just helps you navigate those finances. It's a great check-in tool to be able to, can I afford this extra expense? How am I tracking with the expenses? Budgets will also only work if they are updated. So we've got to make sure when there's changes to anything that we've got in that budget, where it may have increased or decreased, we're going to make those amendments. And any additional or new costs, we've got to make sure that we're keeping them up to date, so that it's relevant and it does become that resource tool that we can rely on. Making sure that we've got the niceties in there, if we can be budgeting for holidays, budgeting for Christmas, budgeting for birthdays. So then those little things aren't going to come snapping on our heels and cause us extra stress because, oh, look, I knew it was coming and I thought it'd be okay, but it wasn't. So then we're increasing our own stress levels when the budget can really be our friend. So knowing our numbers, having a rough idea, in your head at all times, but the budget will obviously be the tracker that you're going to keep as your tool. For businesses, you've got your operating costs, your fixed costs and your variable costs, and your cost of production. So again, you really want to make sure that those figures are at forefront of mind, so that if there's variations, it's a good reminder that you've got to double check, where is that budget at? Where am I going? How am I tracking? How much of an impact are these costs having? And do I need to be raising my cost of production as well? Because, if the costs are going up incrementally, you might be able to absorb some, but you are in the business there to make money and be able to finance yourself and your own lifestyle. So that's pretty much how we're going to deal with it. You're going to have a budget that you have created, one that you're comfortable with and that you'll keep working with. So you've got to find something that's working for you, because if it's forced upon you or you're using someone else's, you'll generally find, you're not going to go back to it. It's not going to be something that you are going to reference and have that trust in. Next slide there, please. Thank you. Okay, so advice. Yeah, I mean, by no stretch of the imagination is anything that I'm saying or presenting exhaustive. There's going to be things that are tailored and customized to your own self, lifestyle and business. And advice is such an encompassing word, really. And it's almost saying that this is it, but definitely not. But what I would suggest is that you really know your whys. So who are you? Why are you here? What are you doing? How are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? And that's something personal to you, and it can actually change over time as well. But to really sit yourself down and have that conversation. What are your drivers? Is that a good idea, or is it just a good idea in my head? Focus groups are actually really advantageous. Good idea not to have your focus group full of friends and family, because they will want to support you and tell you that this is a great idea. You'd be fantastic at that, because they don't really want to hurt your feelings or make you think too critically. So a focus group with relevant people to the demographic that you might be trying to reach. But yeah, you don't want to be told that you're great and this is all good and everything's fantastic and you're just going to absolutely fly through this, because then you will be meeting some challenges and they may be harder to face. So a focus group, a mentor, someone who's in the industry or a business that you are aspiring to, or have that little nudge that you'd like to get involved with, whether it's a career or a business. Go and have a chat to a person that stands out for you, that you admire, or you think, I like what they do. I'd like to be like that. I'd like to have that sort of image. Have a chat to them. You'd be surprised how receptive some can actually be. Yes, you might get some knockbacks, but hey, that's going to happen in all walks of life, no matter what you're doing. A mentor, and again, pick that person out. When I first went into real estate, I was quite bullish and cheeky and approached someone in the Sydney market that had a lot of qualities and characters that I thought were great to be in real estate, and I really aspired to be like him. I was bullish, went forward, asked him if he'd be my mentor. He accepted. After that, I did not know what to do. I was so surprised that a person of his caliber would say yes. But my message then at the take home is, be bullish. And if you see someone has these attributes and characters that you admire and you wish to be emulating, go and ask them. They may say no, they may say yes. Have a backup plan as well. There may be someone else there. But it's invaluable, the lessons that they can actually pass on to you. So your finances, you really got to know your finances. If you don't, make sure you've got people around you who can support you in those fields and those skills. Interview your accountants, your lawyers, solicitors, whoever you want to have in your close network. Make sure that you're on a similar page. You don't want to have to feel like you need to have dinner with them, but you feel like you're on the same page, that they're resonating with you, that you can be working together, not at loggerheads or fearful of them. So yeah, your cash flow, making sure that you start to educate yourself there. Your business numbers, your research and development has already gone through at the beginning. They're amazing, and they really are there at your fingertips. So sometimes you can go off and do research and development and come back with an overwhelming amount of information, and then it does become too overwhelming and you don't take those next steps. It can actually make you stagnate. So I would suggest that you start local, keep it local, and these resources are there. And if it seems a bit too easy to find, just be thankful that they are there, and become familiar with them. If you're not sure about them, ask questions, seek help. Whether that's from your accountant or other business people, that's what you want to be making sure that you are getting into. Sorry, next slide there. And this is just one of my most favourite sayings: whatever you are, be a good one. So whatever field, career, business that you venture into, just give it your all. Make sure that you're not holding back. The next one. And lead by example. Be the change that you wish to see in the world. By Mahatma Gandhi. That's in all forms of business leadership, being a mother, being a female, a business person. Be what you'd like to see out there. Create that image that's important to you, where you'd like to see it to be. Next one. Okay, the current challenges that we really see at the moment in the service are very similar to everyday people. It's not just related to primary producers, but they do have a couple of added ones. So naturally, the rising cost of living, interest rates, commodity prices. There's been significant crashes in the livestock market. So the cattle is 64% down and sheep is 70% down. So that has a massive increase of stress and financial pressures and lack of cash flow for the primary producers. The input costs are very high. They also have problems at the moment with availability of contractors, getting manual labour and materials, whether it be fertiliser or fence posts, whatever it is. The actual availability of those materials for them to carry on business as usual is scarce. This all does culminate in significant mental health. They're isolated, they're remote. We have had confirmation, the declaration of El Nino. So we're heading into another drought after compounding years of drought, bushfire, mice plagues, and two lots of significant floods there. So resulting in cash flow issues all around. That is something that we are dealing with on a massive level at the moment. Next one. All right, so starting a business or changing a career, you've got the passion, do the research, and again, visit those people, those businesses that you admire and you would like to have some of those qualities or characters. We look at a business as, really 4 pillars there. So there's the business owner, the family. The family is always involved, even if they're not directly working. Then you also have the business network. So that's your impact within the community, the people you deal with, the services that you provide. So it's an extensive ripple effect for the success or non-success. And next one. So it's been all quite business and knowing numbers and yourself skilled up, retraining if necessary, reskilling if you're changing your careers, and again speaking to people that are already in that industry before you make that major jump. But all the way along, whether it's your career or small business, you've got to make those special moments where we have a balance. That could be for small moments during the course of the day. It could be bigger portions, nighttime, you could have morning rituals, evening rituals, but really that's just as important as having your business plan, reviewing your business plan at regular intervals and updating it. This really needs to formulate, part of what you're doing and how you're going about it. With having a great balance, or endeavouring to have a great balance, your productivity is going to be higher. Your relationships, both personal and business, are going to be more substantial and more rewarding for all parties involved. And even just during the course of the day, sometimes you can be hyper fixated on problems or projects or dreams that you're evolving, or plans that you're putting into place. That hyperfixation can be very productive, but it can also mean that you neglect yourself. So you can be working through pain, you can be working through little signals that the body's giving you, but because you're so fixated and sort of getting a certain amount of stimulation out of what you're doing, you can be causing yourself a bit of damage. So make sure you've got some joy, and stretching, having a bit of a walk, changing your glance, your focus away from the computer screen. And a recent stat that came in was that every 30 minutes that you're sitting for, you actually need 5 minutes of movement. So varying your movement, sitting, standing, walking on the spot, just keeping those little things in mind, giving yourself some joy, getting out the sunshine, breathing big breaths of fresh air, and having those moments of joy that you know you can look forward to. And that would be over and out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. You covered so much there, both about kind of the service that you provide, which, sounds incredible, but also just that general advice, following your footsteps and starting a business is all very, very insightful. So thank you. So our next speaker our final speaker is Jacqueline Wilson from ID Support New South Wales. And Jacqueline will be taking us through ways to protect your small business from cyber threats. So yes, thank you so much, Jacqueline. Take it away. Oh, sorry, no, I will actually quickly introduce you. Jacqueline leads stakeholder engagement at ID Support New South Wales, where she helps coordinate the New South Wales government response to large-scale data breaches. She and her team work regularly with small businesses, organisations, peak bodies and industry to reinforce the importance of keeping personal information safe to prevent data breaches, while providing best practice strategies to respond if a data breach does occur. Take it away, Jacqueline.
Thanks, Ellie, and thank you so much for having us today. So yes, I'm Jack from ID Support. You may know of us, you may not. We're relatively new. So we are a business unit in the New South Wales government, dedicated to responding to data breaches for New South Wales government agencies. But a lot of that knowledge and experience, we're making it as accessible as possible for all small businesses. And we also provide a one-stop shop for New South Wales customers that have been affected by identity misuse or data breaches. Now, before I begin, I want to let you know that most of this information is available on our website, so don't feel the need to take furious notes, but I can give you a heads up as to our origin story. So back in 2020, you may recall Service New South Wales had a data breach that affected over 100,000 individuals. So copies of the ID they provided over the counter were stolen. It was groundbreaking for New South Wales government and for broader Australia. We had to learn how to manage a data breach while managing a data breach. And then we had a few more. We had Transport for New South Wales and New South Wales Health were affected by the Excellion data breach. New South Wales Department of Education, and then Transport again. So was anybody on the call affected by any of these data breaches? Hopefully not, but it became apparent that we needed an effective solution, a centre of excellence. So that's how we came to be. So like I said, we have a dedicated contact centre of specialist advisors who assist New South Wales customers who have had their identity misused. So those are all experts in the recovery process, because it can be a somewhat lonely journey if your identity has been stolen. We also work across government and industry to strengthen identity resilience, advocating for change, although sometimes it feels like agitating with the way that ID and personal information are collected and stored. So we want to prevent creating these honeypots for hackers. So we want to know, why are people asking for this personal information and do they really need it, so that you don't feel the pressure to hand it over. And then we're also focused on education and raising awareness, with prevention being better than a cure. So if we can arm New South Wales with the knowledge of how important personal information and their identities are, we'll be better placed to avoid these unfortunate incidents that are becoming a little too frequent. So solving it requires collaboration across all aspects of the identity ecosystem. So government, as issuers of identity, need to make sure that they issue strong and useful identity documents with appropriate controls, so that if it is compromised, you can reissue it and your identity is secure once again. Industry and businesses, like I said, as consumers of identity, they need to have secure practices on how they collect it, and also question themselves as to whether they really need it. Is it necessary? Do they want to store it? And then finally, us as the owners of our identities, we need to be careful with how we use them and we share them. So I need to think twice before I send a selfie of me with my license to someone I've met on Instagram for the investment of an opportunity. So we'll all have to contribute if we're to make a meaningful change. So why do we care about data breaches? So in the ACCC's latest targeting scams report, they estimate that we as Australians lost over $3 billion to scams in 2022. So it's a lot of hard-earned money being handed over to criminals. So data breaches are coming thick and fast. Everyone knows we've had a pretty bad run recently. So if anybody on the call was affected by Optus or Medibank or Latitude, I've got a few of them, plus all of the others that were sprinkled in between. So we had the highest data breach density in the world in the last quarter of 2022, 24 times higher than the global average. And we as Australians are beginning to sit up and take notice. So it's been a bit of a wake-up call for us. So half of us received a data breach notification last year, and we know that many of us had to replace our ID, or we went on to experience identity theft. So in the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner's Community Attitudes to Privacy survey this year, what do we think the Australians' top privacy concern was? So it wasn't scams, and it wasn't surveillance, and it wasn't social media, surprisingly. Our number one privacy concern is data breaches. So with already over 400 being reported this year, we need to work out, why do people want this personal information? If I'm a small business and I'm collecting it, how valuable is it? So as we've moved to become more and more online, so is the way we've proved our identity. So giving assurances for who we are, our reliability and our credibility. So we can transact online with just our credit cards and our ID, and we never show our face. So the document verification service checks government issued ID against a system of record to make sure it's valid. So yes, that's great. It will tell me that that's a New South Wales driver license you've entered and it's valid. What it won't tell me is that the person entering online is who they say they are. So trust a criminal to find an opportunity. So fraudsters know that with someone's ID, they can basically impersonate them online, claim their benefits, apply for credit, set up mule accounts, fake profiles, and cause havoc, all for the rightful owner. So the dark web is home to these online marketplaces that allow criminals to buy and sell them as they please. So last year, the average price for New South Wales driver license was about $60, and that's down from $235 the year prior, but there was a glut in the market recently. An Australian credit card with a 3-digit code was about $30. So they're affordable and they're in demand. So if you think about how much a criminal could make with a data breach that exposed 100 licenses, 1,000 licenses, or 1 million licenses, it makes you think about what is the value in storing these credentials? Do I need to keep them? Am I making myself a target? So you're all here because you own and run and work in small businesses. And so currently, small businesses are exempt from the Privacy Act, but unfortunately, no one is exempt from cybercrime. So on average, in Australia, there's a cyber attack every 10 minutes, with 43% targeting SMEs. Of those surveyed by the Australian Cybersecurity Centre, 62% of small to medium businesses have already been the victim of a cyber attack. But we also know that almost half spend less than $500 on cybersecurity per year. So the budgets are low, but the risks are high. So while you may not be able to resource a chief information security officer or an IT team or cybersecurity team, you're just as likely a target to these attacks that have the potential to cause huge disruptions to your business and financial losses. The average cost per cybercrime reported for small businesses is $39,000, and a ransomware attack can leave your business offline for 3 weeks. A business email compromise can cost a small business around $50,000, which is a massive impact. Now, we know that most SMEs feel they don't have the in-house skills to deal with data breaches, which makes sense. You're an expert at what you do, and while you're forced to wear many hats running your own business, responding to a data breach can require quite technical skills, and it seems wildly unfair and highlights the clear need for cybersecurity to be accessible to all businesses. So this isn't to make you feel hopeless. So with all this talk about data breaches and cyber attacks and hackers, and everyone saying, it's not if, but when, you may feel like turning off the computer and going back to the invoice book and cash only. But while breached organisations and the media may talk about sophisticated attacks and nation-state actors, artificial intelligence, the majority of cyber attacks are hygiene failures. So over 80% of breaches involve the use of weak or stolen passwords. So poor cybersecurity at an individual level has a massive impact on business security. So hackers will use individuals as the entry point into your business data. So while it may not be if but when, in hindsight, many breached organisations know that some were preventable. So I want to talk about cyber hygiene. Sorry, obviously now the computer wants to update. It's just being very cyber hygienic. So I want to talk about cyber hygiene. So the basic cybersecurity principles you can deploy at little to no cost to keep your business safe. So data security. So you as a small business owner, what are your crown jewels and are you keeping them safe? So consider personal information and ID in this category. Are the files password protected? Encrypt your data and have it shared only on secure drives, so not in your inbox. Strong passwords. So as I said, 80% of breaches involve the use of weak or stolen passwords. Now there's a lot of advice on how to create a strong password: long, complex, letters, numbers, special characters, passphrases, password managers. It's hard to keep on top of them, but here at ID Support, we've developed a tool that will put the theory into practice, which I'll show you later. But basically the passwords are the keys to your kingdom and you need to keep them safe at all costs. Business processes. So review your business processes end to end. If your business were to be subject to a ransomware attack, do you have backups? How quickly could you recover? I'm sure we all consider ourselves cyber safe and there's no way we would have lax practices, but it's worth going over them with a fine-tooth comb so that you discover your vulnerabilities before someone else does. If you can get expert advice on this, it may well be worth the money. Third-party systems. So this is a big one. So you can't do it all and you probably rely on a number of vendors to keep your business running. If they were to have a breach and expose your customers' personal information, who do you think your customers would hold responsible? The third-party vendor they don't know, or you, the business that they trusted it with? Your vendor's security practices will affect your reputation, so make sure that they hold themselves to the same standards that you do. Again, not to belabor the point, but we know from recent breaches, criminals are not necessarily attacking a single organisation, but instead the third-party service providers so that they get access to several organisations at once. Minimum storage. So again, think about what you're collecting and you're storing. Do you really need it? If you don't, I'd recommend you don't ask for it and you don't hold on to it. So times have changed from wanting as much information about your customer for targeted marketing to now wanting to know as little as possible to limit the consequences of a potential data breach. So it's moved from being an asset to a liability. And also when you dispose of it, do it securely and in a timely manner. And don't forget your backups. Access control. So this isn't about not trusting your staff, but limiting the damage an attacker can do should they get access to your systems. It seems simple, but it bears repeating. Not everyone should have admin access. Also, consider sharing links where you can instead of attaching documents. An attachment on an email can be forwarded endlessly without your knowledge. With links, you can withdraw access. Automatic updates. So enable automatic updates so that your business stays up to date with security patches. So many of the data breaches we've worked on have involved security vulnerabilities that weren't patched quickly enough. Trained staff. So like I said earlier, cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. Each member of your business, their cyber hygiene will affect your business security. Train your staff to spot phishing attacks, how to check links, what to do in the event of a breach. And develop a strong reporting culture. So if you see something, say something. You want your team to feel comfortable to speak up if they click on a bad link so you can act quickly. So there will be cyber incidents, no doubt, but it's about how you respond in a crisis. And then having a breach response plan. So perfect preparation prevents poor performance. So plan for the inevitable, because again, from experience, I know that we don't make our best decisions at 2 a.m. in the morning after we've discovered we're locked out of our system. You want everyone to know their responsibilities and who to call. So if a data breach occurs, what then? So there are 4 main steps. So there's contain, so keep the data breach under control, prevent further access. Assess, work out what was taken. Was there personal information exposed? If there was, is it likely to cause harm to the individual? Notify, so notifying the authority, but also the affected individuals, so that they're aware and they can take the necessary precautions to prevent further harm. And then review, so look back and think on the situation, how could you prevent it? Conduct a full security and privacy review and modify your practices. Now, this is all very technical, and I hope that you never experience a breach, but you don't need to, suffer through it alone. There are many data breach response plans available freely online, and the Australian Cybersecurity Centre provides exercises in a box where you can basically practice how you would respond to a number of different incidents, like ransomware, a phishing email, software compromise, insider threat, and more. Again, would make sure that you do it at least once a year, but like with all exercises, the more you do it, the better you get. So I've loaded you up with stacks of information, so hopefully you don't feel like the sky is falling and that if you haven't been breached already, you're about to. So data breaches aren't ideal, but you can recover. We had all of those breaches that I mentioned earlier. We've practiced our data breach response quite a bit, and we've been able to make some real progress and improve our efficiencies. And so now we operate as a centre of excellence. So as I said before about small businesses sometimes meaning small budgets, we want to make all of this information, we want to keep New South Wales customers' personal information safe, and with you as small businesses collecting it, the best way to do it is to make sure that you have the tools you need to protect it. We have information on handling personal information, cybersecurity fundamentals, passwords and webinars, and e-learning modules available on our website. So each week we have a free 30-minute webinar that will cover personal information, current trends we're seeing, some case studies and practical measures. So you can register online at our website for those. And we also have another weekly webinar for you as an individual to protect your identity. We have a suite of online learning modules covering a range of topics like social media, data breaches, cryptocurrency and scams. So these are on demand and self-paced. There's no need to log in, no paywall, no need to provide personal information to access, because again, trying to get as many people skilled up as possible. In addition to a range of other fact sheets, we have checklists for employers and employees to keep personal information safe. So just making sure that everybody takes responsibility for cybersecurity, not just the boss, not just the staff, and they have some owners and due dates for them so that people take action. And then my favourite, the password strength tester. So there's a lot of guidance around strong passwords, and sometimes it can seem overwhelming. So is it long enough? Is it complex? Should I replace letters with numbers, uppercase, lowercase? Do I use a password manager? Do I trust a password manager? Should I make it an absurd word, a lyric? How will I know if it's good enough? And more importantly, how will I remember it? So our ID Support New South Wales password strength tester will allow you to test the strength of a password, whether it's yours or not. So it's secure, it's anonymous, your password never leaves the browser. We don't collect, track, store or send them. So no one can link them to your usernames, accounts or websites. And you begin by entering a password into the field and it'll run a series of tests on it. So it'll check on the time to crack. So how long would it take a bot using code to work it out? It would also go on the complexity. So is it a commonly used word? Is it in the dictionary? Is it guessable? A name, a place? And then finally, the most important one is, has it already been exposed in a data breach? So if it's already in the list of exposed breaches or exposed passwords, it's not original and you should refresh it. So you want to move from red boxes to green boxes, passing each of the tests. And it's an easy way to just try. You can try different passwords and see, how much of a difference adding a few extra characters makes. And it's good for you to share with your business, just to remind everybody about the importance of cybersecurity. A case study or reason why you may want to consider each of these things is in 2016, there was a LinkedIn data breach where users' email addresses and passwords were exposed, and a certain American businessman apparently had his email and password combo linked. Not sure if you can guess who it was, but the password was "you're fired." Anyway, people used that combination to access his Twitter account and impersonate him. And then, fun fact, but years later, he still hadn't learned his lesson, and somebody was able to access his accounts using MAGA 2020. So that just shows how simple passwords are, but how we don't always use them to the best of our ability. So on that note, I'll finish up. So cybersecurity is so important to all businesses, big and small, and with increasing costs, limited resources and budget, it can be hard to keep on top of, but we want all of our information, all of our knowledge to be as accessible to New South Wales as possible. So check out our website. Yes, search for us. Feel free to give us a call as well on our number. We have a team of advisors waiting to take your call. There's not the long waits that you'd generally expect. But yeah, reach out to me if you have any other questions. And thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Jacqueline.
Ellie.
That was so comprehensive and just like so many pieces of practical advice. So I'm sure that will be very useful to any small business owners in the meeting with us today. So we have some time, so we're wrapping up soon, but we do have time for questions. So if you have questions for any of our speakers today, please pop them in the chat. I might kick us off because I've kind of got questions for each of our speakers today. But if you have any questions yourselves, please just pop them in the chat while we're just getting through some of our first ones. So Sandra, just going back to our first speaker, thanks again, Sandra. I'm really interested in terms of it seems like in a kind of small business debt situation, like any kind of challenging situation, the earlier you reach out for support, the better and the more options are available to you. Would you mind taking us through maybe some kind of those really early signs that you may need to want to proactively reach out for support and see like if you are potentially going down a challenging road?
Okay, so having not been able to pay tax is one of the earliest signs, because that's one of the debts that seem to mount up quite quickly. And if another sign is if you're feeling uncomfortable to open your mail is another one. So if you're getting anxiety, if you're getting windowed envelope, if that's giving you anxiety and you're nervous to open them because you're afraid of what they hold, that's another sign. If you're looking at ways to really cut back because you're nervous about what's around the corner, if you're not wanting to restock, but you need to restock because you need to have the stock to sell, reach out, because the sooner you are able to get assistance and talk through different options that might be out there, it might make the difference of being able to protect your home even. And if it does come to the fact that the home has to go. And that's, of course, we don't want to see that happening. But if that does have to happen, it's better off if that happens on your terms rather than the bank's. So being in control, it's quite empowering to know your options and being in control, steering the process yourself rather than having a creditor do that for you.
Thanks, Sandra. I think that's really useful, even just those little kind of almost mental things. That's really helpful. And yeah, it's, I guess, just one of those things, and exactly kind of the earlier the better in these situations. And that was a great way to put it, about kind of doing it on your terms if it does end up going down that more challenging road. So going kind of chronologically, Danielle, there was so much in your presentation, but something I found interesting that I'd kind of hadn't thought about before was that those your kind of formal business network and the kind of people that you're connected with in your business. You mentioned that something that is a good thing to do is to actually kind of investigate them, or like see if they're the right people, interview the lawyers and the accountants. My question is, if you're like, which you're most likely not, kind of an expert in that field and that skill, what are kind of some of the things that you would look out for when you're looking to engage somebody to support your business?
Okay, well, in the early days where, it's formative of the business, yourself, everything is in those early stages, and you will go through growth. So you don't always know the right things to ask, but feeling a certain amount of comfortability and that you can approach this person. So if I was wanting to speak to the accountant and I said, look, I don't understand what you mean by cash flow. If the accountant wasn't then just receptive and ready to explain that to me, I would see that as a little bit of a red flag, because I want to have that comfortability, no matter, as I think we've all learned, there are no silly questions, but you might feel very conscious and it starts to create anxiety. If that's going to do that in the very first startup of trying to form a working relationship with this person, then when things start bustling along, and I think one of the big pitfalls for a small business is that you can actually have incredible growth in a very short period of time, and that can also be your greatest success but your greatest demise as well. So when things do get sticky, and there are some hard conversations that have to be had, you're going to be very anxious and potentially hold back, rather than going to that trusted resource that is supposed to be in your network to back you and have your back. So you really need to have that comfortability. So it's not knowing the figures, not knowing how to run a business, but you feel you can approach that person with whatever is concerning you or making you feel anxious, so you can get past it.
That's really great advice. Thanks, Danielle. And my question for Jacqueline, I noticed in your presentation, it was the kind of considerations you have to make about cyber threats and data breaches are so kind of comprehensive over the business and cover kind of everybody involved. It would seem that like a culture of kind of cybersecurity is really important, and kind of a culture of protecting data. Would you have any kind of advice about how to promote that culture, like particularly within a small business, and kind of encourage that as a part of everybody's responsibility?
Sorry, my computer's restarted, so I've
No,
changed
that's
my
okay.
microphone now. So I think it is hard to, it is challenging, but we need to think about in terms of like psychological safety. So sometimes you can think, okay, we've had 50 data breaches this year. That's so bad. The business next to us has only had one. It's not necessarily that that's a bad thing. It means that 50 people, you've had the right sensitivity to report them and notify them. So not having any data breaches reported isn't a sign that you haven't had any data breaches. So just having a team culture that people are comfortable to speak up, and without fear of retribution, things like that.
Thanks, Jacqueline. That sounds very sensible. If no one else has any questions in the chat, I can't see any at the moment. I might just wrap up for today. We're just a couple minutes early. But thank you so much, everybody, for coming today, and to our incredibly knowledgeable speakers who just spoke across such a broad range of topics, but all just incredibly useful in terms of protecting and strengthening your business. And thank you also to our wonderful community engagement team at Women New South Wales for organising today's event. We really hope you learned something valuable today, and we wish you the best of luck on your small business journey at whatever stage you are in that. We have some resources, which I believe are coming on the screen. And yeah, we really encourage you just to investigate any of the resources that we mentioned today that you think might be helpful to you. And I also just want to mention that you will receive, as an attendee of this session, you'll receive an email from Women New South Wales just asking you some feedback. We really appreciate any and all feedback as it allows us to improve future sessions. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming today. Thank you so much to our wonderful speakers. And yeah, I hope you had a great time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.